Week 3 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. Last week, most of my time was eaten up waiting for more supplies to come in, so I didn't make much progress. Color matching has been half the battle with this project, so I got this book of DMC floss samples to help me out in the future. It's kind of a shot in the dark figuring out how much floss I'll need, but I know this is only the beginning. I'm still way down here in the middle of the ocean treading water. Check back in next week to see if I've made it to shore. Week 4 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. You're not gonna believe this, but this week I put in my third floss order from 123 Stitch. Big shout out to the people over there for putting up with my ridiculous orders. My restock hasn't arrived yet, so I didn't make quite as much progress as I wanted to this week. I definitely underestimated how much of this medium blue color I was going to need to fill in the ocean. When my floss order does get here though, I'll have all the random colors I need for things like Willie's place and the Hat Mouse's house. Despite that, I did technically make landfall this week by touching down on the shore of this little island over here. This section of the map is my current favorite. I love getting to see how the color palette is starting to come together. If you have any questions for me about this process, be sure to leave a comment. I'm thinking about putting together a little FAQ about the project. I'd also love to know, how long do you think it'll take me to complete the map? Tune in next week to see if I've at least made it to Willie's.
Week 5 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. This week, the map is really starting to look like something beyond a blue rectangle, and I could not be more excited. Many people have asked me how I stay motivated to work on something like this, or speculated that I must be hugely patient, but I actually find this level of detail work hugely gratifying. I'm a very visual person, so watching the image emerge in real time gives me more of a sense of progress than I tend to feel when just working on a blank rectangle. Even when I only get a handful of rows done, I feel like I've accomplished a lot. This week, I'm especially proud of my progress. I've had a soft goal of 10 rows a week in mind for this project, and I actually managed to meet it this time. If I can stick to this goal, that should enable me to finish the map within 6 months. Of course, each row is only going to get more complicated from here now that we've actually hit the mainland. I was so focused on Willie's house that I didn't even realize it came down into the ocean this far. I'm not intimidated though. This may be the most colors I've ever had to juggle in one project with 42 acquired and about a dozen more to order, but I've got a pretty good handle on managing my tails. If you'd like to learn more about that or other aspects of the project, be sure to watch my accompanying FAQ series, and I'll see you next Wednesday for a party on the beach. Week 6 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. For everyone who's been waiting to hear me say this, you can stop holding your breath now because yes, I did in fact run out of floss again. This time it was dark blue. When it comes to keeping colors in stock, this is one area in which cross-stitch really has a leg up on crochet. It doesn't matter how many other colors I have on hand, if I run out of the color I need, I can't just skip over it. Fortunately, my emergency restock got here a lot sooner than anticipated, so I was able to crochet a few more rows for this week's update. The broad stretches of ocean we've been swimming in for weeks are quickly starting to vanish as we scale the cliffs to the mainland, and with all these new colors coming into play, like the adorable bright orange of Willie's roof, the chaos on the wrong side of the piece is only increasing. I use clips to keep my working yarn under control, but I'm still seeking a solution this elegant for organizing my working bobbins in a way that enables me to see all of them clearly. Sticking them all in a bag is proving to be less effective than it is when it comes to saving all of my floss wrappers. I'm missing some from the first few weeks of the project, but I think in the long run this collection will do a good job of memorializing the volume of floss I'm running through. Let me know if you also find this satisfying, and keep an eye out for next week's update where I hope we'll reach the Hat Mouse. Week 7 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. This week I got to fully experience the shift from ocean to island. It definitely felt like a speed bump at first. Mapping out where all the little details need to go takes time, as does stopping every few stitches to introduce a new color. I'm doing a lot more cutting now as my use of each shade is much more broken up. That's what makes the back of the map look so shaggy, but for all of you worried about me trying to weave in all of these ends, fear not, I already have a plan for how to cover them. That's why, in my opinion, the pros of all this densely packed detail actually outweigh the cons. With so many more landmarks popping up, like the sewer and the outlets from the river, it's even easier for me to keep track of where I am. The more color changes there are, the more the map gets divided up into bite-sized chunks, and once I had the foundations laid out for all of these different areas, I actually noticed myself regaining some of the speed I initially lost. I'm looking forward to even more fun details to come, like the cherry trees that overlook the cliffs and the field where the flower dance takes place. Next week, I anticipate that we'll even get to visit my second favorite husband at his house on the beach. I hope you'll join me in saying hello to Elliot. Week 8 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. This week, what really struck me about working with the map was its impressionist qualities. When viewed up close, the representational aspects of the work are obscured, and the viewer is enabled to fully appreciate the medium by which it was made. Stepping back, the collected stitches blur together, transforming into shapes we recognize. We can see the same phenomenon exemplified in Seurat's work. You Animal Crossing fans may recognize this pointillist painting, but may not have realized how much it had in common with pixel art before it was ever digitized. The vibrant dots that make up the painting are clearly visible when viewed closely, but as we move away from the painting, the details blend to form a unified image just as they do with the map. This has led me to find unexpected enjoyment in areas like the forest and the island offshore. This also means that, when checking my own progress, I periodically hold the map up to a mirror so that I can gain perspective on all the tiny stitches I've been staring at for so long. I get asked about my hands all the time, but really I feel like I have to be careful about taking breaks for the sake of my eyes. It's sometimes hard to focus my vision after long stints of working on the map, which is why it's a good thing I spend a significant portion of my weekend working on other projects. If any of this looks interesting to you, be sure to drop me a follow so that you don't miss out on notifications about shop updates, and I'll see you next week for an extra special map update. Week 9 of... Hang on. Can we get a milestone check? Week 9 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map, pixel for pixel, and we are 1/4 of the way done, with 61 out of 244 rows completed. 4 weeks ago, I hypothesized that I could finish this project within another 6 months, and while I now think that estimate was a little generous, I don't think it was that far off. If I can complete the remaining 3/4 of the map within the same time frame that I did the first, I could be done crocheting by early December, leaving me enough time to tidy up before the year is out. To do this, I'll have to be consistent about completing roughly 7 rows a week, but that's been very doable so far. Knowing that all of you are waiting for updates really helps to keep me motivated, and I hope you'll stick with me through the rest of the year. Week 10 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel, and I actually made a super weird discovery. You may notice I didn't make a ton of progress this week, at least not on the map. I actually accomplished quite a bit this week, including a shop update, a pattern test, relearning how to knit, and using my sewing machine for the very first time. So I think I can excuse myself for only having time to squeeze in a couple of rows. Those rows yielded something very interesting though. I didn't notice it at first because of how small it is, but there are 2 pixels in this sea of green that are completely unique. They're not far off in color from the darkest green that makes up the trees, but they're definitely a unique shade that I haven't used prior. In all of my time playing Stardew Valley, I've never come across a reason for this particular anomaly, which really isn't saying much considering my inability to make it through year 2, but I bet some of you out there have played deep enough into the game to know what this is. Beware of spoilers in the comments, and if you've got any favorite sewing or knitting patterns you'd like to recommend for someone looking to polish up their skills, I'd love to hear them. Week 11 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel, and I think it's time for our first weigh-in. Picking up the map to work on it this morning, I noticed that it actually has some heft to it. I wouldn't call it heavy, but I would probably notice the difference if I put it in my bag. Currently, we're sitting at 7.1 ounces, which is about the same weight as 2 of these 180-yard skeins of DK weight yarn. Now, to be clear, there is extraneous material contributing to the weight of the map, namely all of my working floss and the clips I use to keep it tidy, but I don't think this is significant enough to skew the estimate that much, especially when you take into account the weight of 1 skein of floss on its own. There isn't even a weight printed on the label because the weight is less than 1/10 of an ounce. In fact, I had to weigh 9 of these just to get the scale to register, which means 1 skein of floss weighs approximately 0.3 ounces. I could continue doing math in order to estimate how many skeins of floss I've used so far, but I do think that number is a little inaccurate at the moment. Let's just say it's definitely more than I thought it would be. Week 12 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. This week, my hands have not been too happy with me, but not for the reason you'd think. I actually find the map to be pretty low intensity when it comes to the strain it puts on my hands. I work with a very small hook, which means I don't have to use as much tension to form each stitch because the size of the hook is already the size I want each stitch to be. I actually had to catch myself and back off a little bit with my tension at one point because my stitches were getting a little too tight, and I'm blaming this guy. I've been working on another project on the side that had me choking up on my hook a little, and let me tell you, crocheting tight tension worsted weight stitches with a size 4 hook hurts way worse than the map ever has. Fortunately, when it comes to my works in progress, I have enough variety going right now that I can easily switch things up to give myself a break. And I'm making sure to stretch my hands, of course. Here's your reminder to do the same. Maybe drink some water while you're at it, and I'll see you next week for another update. Week 13 of Crocheting the Stardew Valley world map, pixel for pixel. This was kind of a slow week for me in terms of progress, but one thing I absolutely love about this project is just how much of a visual impact each row has. These pastoral scenes feel so much more complete with the additions of riverbeds and cliffsides, and in a way, both the festival area for the flower dance and the beach are fully finished now. As the bridge that leads into town comes into view, we're entering a whole new section of the map. Fortunately, I have already secured the colors I'll need to complete the many unique structures around the town square. This is, believe it or not, still not all the colors I will need to complete this project, but I won't have to do more color matching until I get up into the last quarter of the map. At that point, I should be able to put together a more comprehensive list of my color choices with help from the many invoices and discarded floss wrappers I've been saving, but that's a project for future me. Current me has their hands full juggling all of these yarn tails and the chaos that is yet to come as we approach the end of the ocean. Tune in next week to see if the rapidly expanding forest will finally be the end of me. Week 14 of Crocheting the Stardew Valley world map, pixel for pixel. You may have noticed this week's update is a little late. Well, I'm blaming the weather for that. I'm still very pleased with my progress this week. We've officially crossed the bridge into town and the deep waters of the ocean have finally dispersed, leaving behind only the last of the surf to complete. But I had to pretty much flip my schedule on its head to make this happen. I may not live in the hottest place in the US, but without central air, my apartment has been miserably hot during the day. I've pretty much been existing nocturnally, which makes recording a little difficult. It doesn't stop me crocheting though, and I've even started on a Stardew Valley themed commission. This is all I'll be able to show you for a very long time since I wouldn't want to ruin the surprise, but I'll be keeping track of progress on this too. Looking ahead on the map, we've got some very exciting landmarks coming up, along with an ocean of trees to replace the ocean of water. We also have some more very hot days approaching, so everyone wish me luck riding them out. Hopefully, I won't melt before next week's update. Week 16 of Crocheting the Stardew Valley world map, pixel for pixel. This week, I got back into the swing of things with another 4 rows. I really wanted to push through that last tiny bit of ocean in order to have a completed shoreline, but I decided it was better to take things at a more relaxed pace like I did last week and try to find ways to refresh my brain a little. Naturally, this led me to quite a bit of playing around with spreadsheets. Since I'm using embroidery floss for multiple projects right now, I felt it was best to go ahead and start separating out the purchases that I made specifically for the map. And yeah, let's just say this is not where I was expecting to be at this point in the project. I also took a little bit of time to clean up the back of the map and cut some of those longer yarn tails. I think it looks a lot less chaotic back here now, though no less hairy, and most of these long pieces can still be used higher up in the map. Next week, I'm anticipating a pretty satisfying update. We're so close to a couple of major landmarks that it was almost painful for me not to push through a few more rows just to get a glimpse. Longevity is my priority with this project though, and I'm going to make sure I can keep coming back week after week. Week 17 of Crocheting the Stardew Valley world map, pixel for pixel. I'm not sure why I was so tired, but I did a lot of sleeping this week. Because of that, I was prepared for this week's update to be a modest one, but that last little bit of ocean has been taunting me for too long. I was determined not to go another week without completing the shoreline, so between Wednesday and Thursday I cranked out the 6 rows necessary to make that happen. This was an exercise in endurance for sure, but I feel like the results are worth it. When you've been working on the same project for a long time, it can be easy to start feeling bogged down. Usually I try to break up my work into smaller pieces so that I can cross things off as I go. With the map being all one big piece, that's not really possible, but checking off each landmark as I complete it gives me a similar feeling of forward momentum. We're getting into an area of the map now where there's no shortage of exciting structures to keep me motivated. And even though I haven't even reached the halfway point yet, this sense of walking a clear path with an end visible on the horizon makes me feel like I'm already almost there. Week 18 of Crocheting the Stardew Valley world map, pixel for pixel. This week, I decided to keep things low-key. I have quite a few projects in the works right now, including editing my first YouTube video, so I can't always dedicate a lot of time to the map. We're at a sweet spot in the project right now, though, where even a few rows make quite a bit of impact. Leah's house is now complete, Haley and Emily's house is coming into frame, and we are on the cusp of finally meeting the wizard. I've also started to notice the heft of the map as I work. I really have to fold it in on itself when I'm crocheting, and the feel of the weave is akin to a soft canvas, though it's much stretchier than that. I've had some people asking how I keep my stitches so straight, so I thought I'd include some close-up shots to break the illusion a bit. Part of the reason I wanted to work at such a small scale was to fool the eye. I am turning my work, so my stitches do still follow that characteristic zigzag slanting to one side or the other depending on which direction I'm working in. It's much harder to see, however, than it would be with a thicker hook and fiber because of how small and close together the stitches are. If you're interested in information like this, I highly recommend subscribing to my YouTube channel for some upcoming content, and I'll see you back here next week for another map update. Week 19 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel, and what a week it's been. We had another pretty intense heat wave come through, so that impacted my ability to work at my computer some. It's been a lot better inside the apartment in general since we got a second AC, but I still try not to add the heat from my desktop to the equation when we're already dealing with extreme temperatures outside. Still, I managed to get 3 rows done in between making a couple of items for a tattoo trade and taking a trip to the ER. I won't go too deep into either of those things in this video, so let's just say that my gallbladder and I aren't really friends right now, but I am okay. As far as Pelican Town goes, Sam and the mayor's houses have both been established on the map, and the museum roof is very nearly finished. We can also see the beginnings of the wizard's tower over in the woods, and the fence around Marnie's farm. Marnie's house and the blacksmith shop will be the next 2 landmarks to appear on the map, so everybody please cross your fingers that a little bit of crochet construction is the most exciting thing that I have to experience this week. Or the most unfortunate in the case of acknowledging the existence of Clint. Week 20 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. I was supposed to be watching out for it, but row 100 managed to sneak up on me anyway, which means this is our second week with a row count in the triple digits. I've still got a little ways to go before reaching the halfway point at row 122, which should occur in the middle of town, just below Pierre's shop, but as you can see from the progress on the buildings at the south end of the square, we're getting awfully close. That also means that the dimensions of the map are growing, even when folded. These little plastic zipper pouches are some of my favorite project bags, but I'm not going to be able to use this one to store them out much longer, so I'd better get busy sewing some new ones. This week is potentially a good time to drag out my sewing machine. We've got another heat wave coming, and it looks like it's going to be the worst one yet, so I don't plan on turning on my computer very much this week. Fortunately, it looks like my wife's iPad will make a suitable substitute. That means I should be able to hide out in the living room where it's cooler without completely sacrificing my access to a reference image. Fall really cannot get here soon enough. Week 21 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel, and as you can see, I survived the heatwave. This week actually turned out to be surprisingly productive for me, even with my gallbladder's repeated attempts at sabotage. I got another 3 rows done on the map, which is making the wizard's tower much more identifiable. Marnie's farmhouse is also coming into frame now, and I've capped off the last roof tile on Emily and Haley's house. Slightly unrelated, but I also published my first piece of long-form content over on YouTube, so that was cool. It's been a while since I showed off the backside of the map, so I wanted to make sure to include that this week. It's looking just as hairy as ever back here. These longer pieces of floss are the ones I'm still actively working with. The rest of this is all end pieces that I'll have to tie off once I'm finished, so that they don't come loose. But I'll be covering all of this with a backing once that's done, so I won't have to worry about actually weaving anything in. It'll be a while yet before we get to the finish line, of course, but I'm getting amped up to overtake the halfway mark within the next few weeks. Patience is a key part of this project, but it also feels good to really lock in sometimes. Week 22 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. This week, I finished off a few more landmarks, though it won't be very long at all before they're replaced by a few new ones. Both Sam and Mayor Lewis now have completed roofs over their heads, and the foundation for the town square has been established. The blacksmith shop is finished, which means I don't have to acknowledge it ever again, and Marnie's farmhouse is also very nearly done, though I think there may be something even more exciting emerging right beside it. That's right, the path to Grandpa's farm has appeared, which means we'll be putting yet another area of the map behind us very soon as we leave the forest and start on the big plot of land so many of us have come to call home. I've had some requests for footage of me actually crocheting,
but it's kind of hard to fit into this kind of short-form content, so I need your opinion on something. If you'd be interested in watching me crochet live, leave a comment to let me know what day of the week you'd be most interested in tuning into my stream and whether you prefer TikTok or Twitch. Either way, I'll be back here next week with another update. Week 23 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. I had a small supply chain hiccup this week that put me a little bit behind where I wanted to be. There was a mix-up with one of my floss orders, so I'm running a little low on dark green at the moment, but as you can see, I still managed to add a few more rows to the map. Marnie's farmhouse is now completely finished, and the beginnings of the saloon have appeared over by the town square. I also put together a new project bag to keep the map nice and tidy. It's not the most professional thing ever made, but I still feel like these little channels look pretty darn good. I still need to make a drawstring to thread through them so that the whole thing works more like a bag than a pillowcase, but it'll do for now. I'm sure I'll have it done by next week, along with what I'm anticipating to be a particularly satisfying map update, and something else worth looking forward to. Thanks to the overwhelmingly positive response, I'll be going live next week on Thursday and Friday. You can expect a more detailed streaming schedule soon, or if you can't wait, just ask about it in the comments. I really appreciate the feedback, and I look forward to hanging out with all of you very soon. Week 24 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. I definitely intended to have a more significant update this week, but I got a little too sidetracked with some map-adjacent projects like preparing for Thursday and Friday's live streams to crochet more than a couple of rows. I also finished up the drawstring on the project bag I made to keep the map safe, so it no longer looks like a pillowcase, and I found that so satisfying that I may have gotten sucked into sewing a second one for carrying around my knitting. Despite these distractions, I did get a start on Grandpa's farm. I also located what I would consider to be the center of town and discovered Pam's trailer over by the river. It's really cool how much detail each row is currently adding to the map, and I'm excited to uncover more of it with all of you live on stream. You'll even get to see how on earth I manage all of these ends. You can find my live stream schedule posted on all of my socials, so if you're interested in hanging out and working on projects together, or if you have any burning questions for me, I hope I'll see you there. If not, I'll be back next week with another update. Week 25 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel, and I am getting so close to the halfway mark I can almost taste it. I have this instinct to rush ahead and get there as fast as possible for all the gratification that'll come with checking that box, but it simply isn't possible for me to hyper-focus the way I'd like to. Pacing myself is a key part of keeping this project realistic, and in the meantime, I get to enjoy fun little moments like completing Pam's trailer. I also laid out the footprint for Grandpa's farm. After how cluttered the second quarter of the map has been, I'm looking forward to working with this open area. Though I will admit, the section of forest over here may be one of my new favorite parts of the map. Looking ahead, I'll be starting on Alex's house tomorrow on stream. If you'd like to come hang out and watch the map come together in real time, you can find my streaming schedule on all of my socials. I had a ton of fun chatting with all of you during my first 2 streams this past week, and I'm looking forward to doing it again. Bring a project of your own and let's work together for a while. Week 26 of crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel, and I have a very special announcement. Today, I am 1 row away from completing the first half of the map. I could have finished that final row for today's update, but I thought it might be more fun to share that milestone with all of you during tomorrow's live event. So for now, let's indulge in a little math. A constant question through this whole process has been, how long will it take me to complete the map? I was originally hopeful that I might be able to complete this project before 2025 was up, but keeping to that schedule would have been too demanding. My new goal is to complete the map within 1 year, and considering 26 is half of 52, I would say that as of right now, I'm on track to do that. One thing I do have to be mindful of in setting this goal is the difficulty of the rows ahead of me. The early portions of the map were so quick to finish because, well, it looked like this. With barely any color changes to slow me down, I was able to crochet the first quarter of the map in only 9 weeks, which means it took me 17 weeks to crochet the second quarter. That's an average of 3 to 4 rows a week. I would like to think that I could do at least a little bit more than that going forward, and the last quarter of the map will be a little bit easier than the second and third with fewer color changes to slow me down, so I imagine I'll be able to pick up some speed at the end. All in all, in order to meet my goal of 52 weeks, I'll have to crochet an average of 4 to 5 rows every week, which sounds very possible to me. Next week we enter quarter 3, so stay tuned for more updates. Week 27 of Crocheting the Stardew Valley world map pixel for pixel. This week, I closed out the last row of Quarter 2 and started in on Quarter 3, officially putting the halfway mark behind me. In case you were wondering where Stardew Valley's figurative equator is located, now you know it runs just below the shadow of the general store, which I also laid the foundations for this week. 16 weeks ago, I conducted my first weigh-in of the project when I was just over 1/4 of the way done. At the time, the map weighed 7.1 ounces, or 201 grams. The weight has almost doubled now, which seems appropriate, coming in at 372 grams, or 13.1 ounces. For comparison, that's almost exactly the same weight as a jar of Nutella, or at least the stuff inside. In related news, I got a tattoo this week. It wasn't planned, but feels like a very appropriate way to mark the occasion. Krobus can come and live on my farm forever now, which is coming along quite well, by the way. Next week, I may even finish up the pond, and I'll definitely be getting a start on Joja Mart, so stay tuned for more updates as I dive into the second half of the map.